Hey everyone, and welcome to Miss Estruch Biology, and this is yet another video in the Preparing for University series, and this one is 5 things that I really wish I knew before I went to university. University is such a fun and exciting experience, and so many people I'm sure will tell you it was the best time of their life. And for me, it absolutely was one of the best times of my life and I loved it. However, it was probably also one of the times that I've cried more in my life because there were so many things in first year that I wasn't expecting, which I now realise are completely normal and it was fine to get upset about. But I want to make sure that you are aware of all of these things, so when you go into first year, it won't be a shock and you'll know that if you end up crying a lot, it's completely normal and you'll also still absolutely love university. So number 1 was the teaching style. So for me, I did a biology degree at the University of Nottingham, and going from A-levels where I was in classes of between 5 and maybe 15 students for my A-levels, where I'd have teachers who could question me in the lesson, I could ask them questions, they would chase me if I hadn't done work, and basically you had lots of mini activities throughout the lesson to keep you engaged, check you understand, to then go to university, which was predominantly lectures in very, very large lecture halls. I found that a huge challenge. So to give you a bit of context, for my first year, the lectures that we had were often for biology students, biochemistry and genetics, and some also had the medical students in it as well. So we had lecture halls that could fit in over 100 students sometimes. On average, it was about 90 students. And you just have one lecturer with their PowerPoint talking at you for 1 to 3 hours. And we were given paper handouts. That's probably a bit different now for you. And we essentially just listened, annotated and wrote notes. Now for me, I was terrible at that. I was one of the best students at my school in terms of engagement, but then I got to university and I found it so hard to pay attention for more than 15 minutes. I remember I used to time it to see at what point I just couldn't focus anymore. And that was a big struggle for me because I then started to fall behind. I didn't understand some of the content. It was a lot harder. And I think if I'd been aware of this, maybe I could have come up with some strategies to make sure I was better focused, better prepared and more able to listen, rather than have the temptation of being in such a large lecture hall, no one would see me on my phone or falling asleep. But I was not the only one guilty of that. But the sorts of things that might help you, they probably give you these lecture slides in advance now, all online, and I think I would have benefited from being able to have that maybe on a tablet, so I could just highlight on my tablet, annotate as I went, and have them in advance to get an idea of what was coming up so I could better prepare. Now number 2 is being aware that you probably won't be the smartest person anymore. You might be someone who at the moment is one of the top students in your class or school, and you're used to always ranking highest and feeling like you understand everything. When you then go to university, you are amongst everyone who is like you. So from the school, all those top A star and A students have all got onto that course, particularly if we're talking about medicine. And that can come as quite a knock to the ego if you go from being like the person that always understands and everyone comes to you for help to suddenly realizing everyone else around you is that person, or even better. So that can really shake you sometimes. And for me, I did find that going from being one of the top people in my school to suddenly realizing there were people that were understanding things that I just couldn't get my head around. It gave me quite a lot of imposter syndrome, made me feel like maybe I wasn't good enough. I particularly found that because I was coming from a girls' school, there were sometimes the boys at university that made me feel like that a lot. And that's not necessarily their fault. For some of them, it definitely was, the comments that they said to me. But I think for me, I just found that a big adjustment from being at a girls' school to a mixed university. The boys were often more confident, and I let that shake my confidence into thinking maybe I'm just not good enough. So whether it is boys, girls, whoever it is, don't let anyone shake your confidence, accept that you might not be the smartest, but just measure your progress against yourself. If it takes you longer to understand something, that is absolutely fine. Just keep working at it. You earned your place there. You are good enough to be there, and keep pushing and ask your tutors for help if you need it. The other thing to bear in mind with that is being surrounded by lots of people who are now either just as good or better than you will be a real driving factor in making you progress much, much faster. So try and think of that positive spin as well. Number 3 is the big one for me. And that was, it might be hard for you to settle in, and that is okay. Now, before I went, people did tell me this. Some people that I knew had older brothers or sisters at university, and they gave me this piece of advice, and I thought, okay, I've taken that on board. But honestly, I really hadn't, because I still experienced it, and I didn't think about the advice. So please think about this, take it on board if it happens. Now, when I say it might be hard to settle in, what I mean is, for me, what happened was I moved into halls, and everyone on my corridor, meet them straight away on day one, and I felt like, right, these are the people that I have to be friends with, because obviously they lived right next to me. But I didn't like some of those people because, you know, you don't get on with everyone. But I felt like I had to be friends with them, and they just weren't my kind of people. And I clearly wasn't theirs either, because they didn't like me. They said some nasty things and it really upset me. And then I felt like, oh, I really don't fit in here. Now, I did have an amazing girl that lived next door to me and a guy who lived opposite who I did get on with. However, I kept feeling like I didn't really fit in. And suddenly moving from home, not having your family nearby, I had a boyfriend at the time that I didn't really like anymore and I needed to dump, and I did eventually. I felt like I didn't have any solid friends. All my friends had gone to other universities. I did feel quite lost at the start. And because you don't have anyone that you really know or love near you at that point, that is why I cried a lot. There were lots of times where I felt like I was the only one who didn't have great friends. You'd see on social media everyone going out having fun, which by the way is just a highlights reel. Don't forget that about social media. And for me, it took until about the February of first year until I found my people. And it came about by the guy who lived opposite me. He actually said that he met a girl on a night out who takes biology that he thinks I'd get on really well with. And he was completely right. And that was Laura, who lived in my halls, and we got on so well. We started to walk to lectures together. She then introduced me to all of her friends that she'd already made. And Laura and all of those friends from F Block are my best friends to this day. So give it time. For me, it took until February until I found my people. It will happen. Just realise that you don't have to be best friends with the people you first meet. If you don't gel, you don't click, that's fine. You can still be friendly, but just keep going until you do find the people that you really connect with, and that is okay. Number 4 is student bank accounts. I really wish I'd known there was such a thing as a student bank account, because I just got a regular current account, and on one of the months where our accommodation money came out, the student loans were 2 days late and they hadn't gone in yet. So what happened was I went into the negatives, which was my overdraft, for that money to come out to pay the accommodation. As a result, I then got charged for going into my overdraft. Something like, it was probably only £25, but as a student, that felt like a lot of money. And it is a lot of money and it's unnecessary. If you get a student account, they usually give you free overdrafts, somewhere around £1,000 to £2,000 typically. And what that means is if you do go into the negatives, which is your overdraft, then you don't get charged if you're a student. But if you use a normal current account and you go into the negatives, into your overdraft, you will get charged every time that happens. So definitely get a student account to avoid that, but also student accounts come with some amazing perks to get you to choose them. I went with NatWest, and when I went with NatWest, which was ages ago now, we're talking about 2007 here, it's a long time ago, but what they offered was a free young person's rail card for 5 years. And that saved me a lot of money in terms of buying the rail card, but it saved me a huge amount in rail tickets going to and from home every term, and also going to and from different universities, visiting my school friends. And then finally, number 5 is making sure you get involved. I did not take advantage of this in my first year. As I already said, there were times where I felt a little bit isolated, lonely and overwhelmed, and because of that, I withdrew in terms of extracurricular. Instead of doing what I should have done, which was branch out, try the things that I know I already love, to find people that I already have a common interest with. But because I did feel a bit overwhelmed, I ended up shrinking in and just not taking those sorts of risks. And it's not even a risk. Please definitely go and do this. So at Freshers Fair, there is every club and society that the university offers, all there to tell you a bit about what they do, and to offer that you sign up to them. Now, I didn't take advantage of any of those other than the freebies, but I really should have done. I used to, before university, work at hospital radio, and I was too shy to sign up to the university radio, and I don't know why. It was literally the same thing. So please don't let shyness get in the way. I did eventually sign up to things that I enjoyed in second or third year when I had a group of friends that joined with me. So I joined the Food Society, and that involved us going to lots of different restaurants across Nottingham, and the chefs taught us how to do cooking. So we did things like sushi and Thai. It was amazing. So definitely get involved in the hobbies that you already have, because it is the best way to find people that can be your friends that already have a common interest. So university is amazing. I absolutely loved it. I know in this video I've mainly talked about all the things that made me feel really vulnerable, uncomfortable, and I cried a lot, but that's because that was the focus of this video. That was only a small snapshot of my entire experience of university, and I did love it. I just wanted to make you aware of the things that made me a little bit uncomfortable and vulnerable at the start, so that hopefully going into it, if you experience the same thing, you know it's completely normal and you know how to get out of that funk. But you will love it and it will be amazing. But for now, that is the end of this video in our university series. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one.